So, as I said, what we're going to do is talk about how we can hire and keep great people. Now, there's a number of companies that are brilliant at hiring people, but they're unable to keep them. And as we all know, that is detrimental to a business, both in terms of cost, because actually, whether you do it yourself or you use someone, it costs you quite a bit to hire someone, and also the impact it can have on the team. So a lot of people sort of think, right, I've got the person, I've hired them, that's brilliant, job done. But actually keeping people is just as important. So what I'll do in the next sort of few minutes, and those of you that know will know me, I won't need the 20 minutes, I'm pretty quick, is I'll take you through how to hire them, but also what are the things you can do along the way to make sure that you keep your people. So the first thing you need to do, and this is probably where most people go wrong, so if I can just have the next slide, Ruth, please, is be clear about what you're looking for. Okay, so often you'll have a bunch of people that get together and say, right, we need to hire a salesperson, or we need to hire a marketing person, or we need to hire an operations person. And what they don't do is spend enough time actually thrashing out what that person is going to do and what that person, the qualities that they're going to need to have, and where they start and where they finish. And all that means is when the person comes to do their interview, depending on who they get to interview them, they can have a completely different experience, because you may find that people are actually looking for different things. And I've tried to make a bit of a joke about it here. You know, the classic case of an M and a W, depending on which way you look at it, depends on what outcome you get. So I would suggest, and this is probably where most people go wrong, before you hire anyone, sit down as a team and work out what they're going to do, where their role starts and where their role finishes, what you expect of them, what are going to be their KPIs, what does good look like, how are you going to measure them, if they're going to be bonused, how they're going to be bonused, what realistically can they expect to earn, what are the benefits, what are the ground rules, and just have all of that thrashed out, because there's nothing worse than someone coming for an interview and not having all the answers. Now, I appreciate in small companies, you know, you'll say, well, I want them to do everything, and that's fine, but they do need to have some accountability of their own, or else you won't know whether they're doing a good job or a bad job. So as I said, the longer you spend in this part, the more success you'll have later on. And as I said, one of the ways that you can do it is actually start through a process and go from A to Z and say, right, if we're talking, say, for example, let's just take Bitter, for example, if we're talking memberships, so who's going to market to attract people? Who's then going to talk to people? Who's going to do the paperwork for people? Who's going to follow up with people? Who's going to, and that way you'll really start to understand who does what and whose role it is. And that will help you write a really exciting job description or a really clear job description. So as I said, spend quite a bit of time on that, because that's really vital. And then the next slide, Ruth, please. Once you've done that, you can then take your information and you can, without spending any money, start looking for people using some of your own social media. So you can put up adverts on Facebook, or not actually even put an advert up, just put a post up saying that you're looking for people. You can put a post up on LinkedIn. You can do it on WhatsApp. Obviously, the better your own profile, then the better this is. If you've got a company who's really well known, then the minute they put something up on their social media, everyone flocks to them because everyone wants to work for them. So, you know, as well as doing recruitment, you also need to think about how well are we out there in the world? How well known are we? What do people think about us? Use referrals. Put up posts. Use referrals. Spread the word. Use your own teams. You know, give them a referral fee if they bring in anybody. There's no end to what you can do in terms of getting the message out that you are hiring. But the important thing is, people will then approach different people within the organisation. So make sure that you are clear about what the role is and what you want them to do. So as I said, just get creative, and the more fun you can make it, the better. You know, job adverts that are jokey, job adverts that are videos, they all work really, really well, particularly for, as I said, the more junior roles, because as we all know, they really are appealing to people. So get those creative juices going, and you'll be surprised how many people you can attract using all of that. Next one, please. This is another really important one. When people are hiring, all they talk about is what the candidate's going to do and how good the candidate's going to be. I think people forget that actually the candidate has a choice, and there are very few people that will only be interviewing with one company. Most people are interviewing with 4 or 5 companies. Therefore, they are going to choose the company that best fits them. So, as well as finding out if this candidate's right for you, you need to spend some time talking to them about why they should want to come and work for you. So, share with them the success that you've had so far. Tell them about the team. Tell them about the type of company that you are, your values. Share with them your vision for the future, which is really important because, and share with them how they are going to be a part of that, how they can be, join the exciting journey that this business is going on, and really, contribute to all of that. Don't oversell, though. It's really important that you keep it real, because otherwise, when they join, they may find themselves in a very different situation. But there's an awful lot of people that don't spend enough time talking to candidates about the opportunity that is in their business. But be realistic, if times are tough, say, look, we're going to go through a difficult 6 months, but after that, this is our plan, or whatever. Be truthful, but ignite some of the passion that you have for your business in them. And I always say, as soon as possible, get the owner of the company to meet candidates, because quite often candidates will feel very loved then and very valued, and will often make a decision on meeting the owner as to whether or not they want to join that business. At the end of the day, you want everyone that you interview to want to work for you, so that you have the choice as to who you pick to join your organisation. So again, one of the things that we do when we're hiring senior people is we pull together a brochure, and we'll pull together a brochure about the business that we're working for, and in it we'll have information that isn't in the public domain. So we'll share with them the business plan, the numbers for the future, their strategy, and so on and so forth. You don't need to do that for more junior roles, but as I said, do share with them your plans and share with them your vision, because I said that's the difference between people saying yes or no. Brilliant. Thanks, Ruth. Next one, please. The other thing is, it always really makes me laugh. And hospitality is a business, or feel like hospitality is an industry that's all about customer service. And people miss a massive trick in terms of they're so busy serving their customers that they don't realise that actually their candidates are their customers as well. So you really should work on ensuring that any candidate that gets involved with you has the same experience as your customer. Because even if they don't end up working for you, you want them to be an advocate of your business. And the chances are, if for any reason they choose not to work for you, they may have a friend who does want to work for you. Or they may say, I don't want the role because I've taken something else. But actually, it's been a fantastic experience. So I know someone who may be interested. And there you go, you've got your replacement candidate. But I'll give you a classic example. We were working for a very famous jewellery company, that thought nothing of jumping on a plane to Dubai with a ring if a customer wanted it. But when it came to candidates, they left them waiting in the reception area for hours before they saw them. They would cancel interviews at the last minute. And it was only when I spoke to them and said, I can't understand why you treat candidates like this when you talk about customer experience. Well, the experience your candidates getting is pretty shite. They then suddenly realised that actually they were not putting themselves in the best light. So really think about it. Have a process, and be sure that when you invite people to an interview, you're on time for the interview. You don't cancel it unless it's absolutely necessary. That you're able to tell them in the beginning what the process is. You're consistent. You're living by your values. Just ensure they have a fantastic experience, because as I said, they're going to be your mouthpiece, whether they take the role or not. So, as I said, treat all candidates like they're customers. Don't put in any silly tests, because that's just a waste of everyone's time. Brilliant. Next one, please, Ruth. So, assuming we've got to all that part, we're now at the interview process. This is the time when you can really get to understand your candidate. And again, you need to prepare really well for this. I've got a few cartoons up there. That stupid question, what would you say is your greatest weakness or your greatest strength? I mean, that's just cop-out questions. You've got a CV in front of you. You've got the person's experience. Talk to them about their experience. If it's a salesperson, make sure you're asking them lots of questions about their sales. And actually, any great person will be really happy to talk about themselves and talk about their experience. So, for example, if it was a salesperson, I would ask them about, tell me about the best deal that you ever did when you were with this company. And when they talk you through it, really home in on it. So say, what part did you play? Who signed the contract? When you were doing the deal, whose mobile phone did they ring? Because otherwise, what sometimes happens is great salespeople are very good at telling you about what their boss did. And it's only when you delve into it and start asking some more pertinent questions, you realise that actually they were a bystander of the process, and actually it was their boss that closed the deal. Another thing to do is everyone will have one great example. Ask them for a second one. Only good people have a second one ready, because only good people will have lots of fantastic examples to give. So that quite often catches people out. The other thing, of course, is just make sure it all adds up. So again, when you're talking to salespeople, when they'll tell you, well, I sold £300,000 worth of memberships. Let's just keep it on bitter. I sold £300,000 worth of memberships last year, and you'll go, fantastic. And then later on in the interview, you'll say to them, so can you just share with me how much commission you earned last year? And they'll say something like £2,000. You'll say, well, what was the percentage of commission? Because then you'll suddenly realise that 2,000 of a £300,000 sale doesn't add up. So then you can start probing as to who actually sold these memberships. So as I said, really take time over the interview in a really nice, friendly way. Just make sure that you're really getting into the nuts and the bolts. Don't use all these generic questions. Really get into the detail. And I said, if they're a good candidate, they'll be happy to talk about it. If everything on their CV isn't true, that will soon start to unravel. The same with marketing. Again, ask them about campaigns. Ask them about the success of campaigns. What was the percentage uplift? What was the lead generation from it? What's the cost per acquisition? Really get into the nuts and bolts. And if you're not an expert on the subject matter, then I'm sure you know someone who is. So just give them a call and find out what are the types of questions you should be asking for each particular area. If it's finance, again, ask them about their costs. How do they move the needle on costs? How do they move the needle on profit? And again, really get into the detail. The interview should be a really enjoyable experience for the candidate. It's not a bad thing to ask lots of questions, because if they're really good at what they do, they will love talking about it. They'll love giving good examples. It's only if you haven't got the examples it's uncomfortable. So don't be afraid, and don't just ask generic woolly questions. At the same time, if your process is your first interview is just an interview, and your second interview is a presentation, then be realistic about the presentation. I mean, again, we've got a jokey thing up here, asking them to do a presentation, how to split the atom when all you really want them to do is make the tea, is pretty unfair. So make sure the presentation is aligned to what they're going to be doing. And again, make it something that they're going to be confident doing, because you want to see the best out of them. So it might be, again, if it's a salesperson, take me through your best sales deal that you did. Take me through the process and how you engaged with the client, how you prospected the client, how you researched the client, all of that type of thing. Again, if it's an operational role, take me through the most difficult logistical problem you ever had and how you worked through it. Because you want the whole idea of a presentation is to understand their thought process, and how they make decisions, when they react to things, what's their reaction. And again, you can start asking them questions around that, and it promotes a really good discussion. But as I said, keep the presentation real to the job they're going to be doing. Otherwise, they'll get a surprise when they come in to do the role and they won't stay. So as I said, it's all about consistency. It's all about process. It's all about being really transparent about what you're doing, making sure you're giving time, and making sure they are seeing the best of you, but at the same time, the realistic you and your company. Next one, please, Ruth. The other thing is, make sure you listen. Make sure you listen during the interview. What we're finding is that money is important. It's really important to people, and that's a lot of the reason why people move roles. But actually, if you listen carefully, what you'll hear when they're describing in their interview their experience, you'll actually hear more about what's important to them. And particularly if you're a small company and you don't have a huge budget, what you'll find is there's quite a lot of things, and particularly in hospitality, that you can do which actually will attract people to your business more than others, and it may not necessarily be money. So, for example, if you can demonstrate to them how you're going to develop them, how you're going to train them, how you're going to give them career prospects, that's really important to people. If, for example, they're working mums or working dads, and it's really important to them that they need to do drop off in the morning, then maybe you can come to some arrangement about working different hours, because that's really important to them. I mean, not in hospitality, but we've had situations where people have, want to bring their dog to the office, and that's a deal breaker for them. And they're happy to, drop a bit of salary in order to be able to do that because it's important to them. So I said, and all of this will come out when you're talking to candidates. But the important thing is to really sort of probe why they're leaving their last role, because that will tell you an awful lot about what's important to them. And then think about how you can accommodate some of that, because I said a lot of those benefits are actually free. They're not a cost to you, and they can help you attract better people. So I think next one, Ruth. Right. So assuming you've done all of that, you've got your people, you've made the offer, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make. They think they've made the offer. Someone says, I've got a month's notice, and you go, brilliant, I'll see you on the 1st of April. Have a nice life for the next month. And you think it's done deal and it's sorted. Several things are going to happen during that month. They're going to resign. And if they are good people, what quite often happens is the current employer will give them a counter offer. And promise them the sun, moon and stars. So, for example, if they've said to them, you've always got to be in at 7 in the morning, and they requested to come in at 8, all of a sudden now they're allowed to come in at 8, and really puts doubts in them about leaving. So you need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared for counter offers. And the other thing, of course, is these people have now put themselves out there. They've started going to interviews, so they may continue to interview while having accepted your role. And it doesn't matter if they've signed a contract or not, because are you really going to bother taking them to court for loss of contract? Not at the level we're talking about here. So what you want to do is, from the day you make the offer, you want to treat them as though they're part of your team. So if there's any team days, if there's any events, if there's any meetings, if they're on gardening leave and they're not actually at work, get them to come into the office, get them to spend a bit of time with the team. I mean, you can do that as part of the interview process anyway, and really get them to become emotionally attached to your business. So they're really looking forward to starting, and already are starting to think about themselves as being part of your company, so that when the counteroffer does come, all of a sudden it's not so exciting. When the other roles start coming in, the other interviews that they may have been to, all of a sudden, they're already committed, they're already emotionally attached to your business. But this is probably the one area that people really, really lose people. The amount of times people say to me, but they accepted the offer, they were going to start on the 1st of April, and I said to them, what did you do in between? Nothing. I just said to them, have a nice life, I'll see you on the 1st of April. You've got to consistently be engaged with those people and keep them on board. And then I think we've got to the final slide, haven't we, Ruth? Right. And this is about keeping people. So you've hired someone for their skills. You've hired them because they've told you what they can do. And you've hired them because you believe that they are the right person for your business. Let them do the job. Let them do the job, and don't try and catch them out. Be supportive, be encouraging, and give them the time that they need. Don't sort of, as I said, lock them in a cage, throw away the key, and then shout at them because they haven't done what you think they should have done on day 2. It's going to take time. It's a relationship, and it's going to take time. So make sure that you are there and supporting them, because all the effort that you put into that first few weeks will pay off in dividends later on, when they are a fully fledged member of the team. At the same time, we have I understand there's a huge problem with, and forgive me for saying this, with millennials who are given a huge amount of time in the beginning, and then when they're left to get on with their own devices, then start looking around for a new job because they're not being trained, they're not being given time, they're not being developed. So again, you need to sit down with when the person starts and says, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to give you my undivided attention for the next 4 weeks, or I'm going to give you a buddy for the next 4 weeks, or I'm going to meet you twice a day for the next 4 weeks. Then after that, I'll drop down to once a week. And then after that, you're kind of on your own, because I'll have given you everything you need to do the role. I'll always be on the end of the phone. I'll always be in the office for you. But I expect you to then start delivering against these objectives. So really be clear about what you expect from people when you expect it. Because as I said, we've got huge amounts of people approaching us, who've only been at businesses for 10, 11 months, and they're saying, I've plateaued. And actually, when you get to the bottom of it, they haven't plateaued. It's just that they're doing the job now, and the expectations haven't been managed. So, as I said, communication is really, really key. And in actual fact, that's the whole thing about recruitment. There's nothing difficult about it. It's about consistency. It's about visibility. It's about process. It's about living by values. It's about giving people time, and do all of that, and you will succeed. The other thing, of course, is identifying who in your business is a good ambassador for you. I heard a story recently, and Paul, this will appeal to you in being a Liverpool supporter, that whenever the manager of Liverpool was struggling to attract a player from another team, he used to send Jamie Redknapp down to see them, because Jamie Redknapp was a really nice guy and he could convince anybody to come and join Liverpool. So they basically sent out their best ambassador. So if you've got someone in your business who you think's a great ambassador, get them to always go and have a chat with the candidate, or get them to sit in on the interview, because they will help get people across the line for you. Sadly, it's a candidate's market at the moment. The candidates have all the choice in most sectors and at most levels, be that senior level or junior level. So employers have to sort of be on the front foot in terms of making sure that they're as attractive as possible. And I think that's it. I think that's everything I can tell you in terms of tips if you want to go and recruit for yourself. As I said, we Portman Scott works on hiring more senior people, and we do a completely different method which involves technology and headhunting. And I'm happy to take anyone through that who is interested separately. But I think the purpose for today was to really give you some useful tips as to how you can recruit yourselves and how you can attract good people and keep them. So hopefully we've covered all of that.